Good. So, repeat. Okay, I am the lecturer. My name is Lajos Strasz, and the basic foundation of this course, I studied history and geography in the 80s, in the last century. I interested, not good the position of the video, because this is the experiment, time by time, finding the good position for that. Okay, a little bit better. Good. So I studied history and geography in the 80s, and I'm interested for both of these disciplines. Therefore, I try to find a research field between the history and geography. Moreover, if you know, for example, the Hungarian historiography dominate by political questions. Majority of Hungarian historians specialized analyzing a political evolution and much less proportion for social evolution, but me interested a basic different concept to the history. It's named environmental history. Environmental history founded in the United States in the 60s and 70s, which is the basic question and the basic principle of environmental history. The basic principle that environment, a physical environment, participate formation of history, change the climate, change the weather, there are earthquake and environmental disaster which able to define the frame of human evolution. Moreover, a critical situation, like for example in the wartime between Ukraine and Russia, it's a driving force, one of the most important driving force, a weather. You know, for example, the concept of Rasputitsa. You know Rasputitsa. Rasputitsa, this is the period of heavy rain, a rain period. Why? Because a heavy raining destroyed the surface, the soil, and the mobile troops not able to move one position to other. Therefore, on the time of Rasputitsa, it's a rainy period, on the autumn and springtime, frozen down whole of the military operation. Therefore, a physical environment able influence a historical process. This is the first peculiarity or principle of environmental history. The second one, we are animal. Not only the bearer of culture, but animal, a real animal. And our behavior very similar. Somebody living together with animal, cat, dog, cow, elephant. Who? With cat?
With cat and the dog.
And the dog. You?
I live with my bird.
Bird, yeah, it's a little bit interesting, the communication with the bird, because I lived together during my childhood in village with lot of animals. For example, the most critical, according to my memories, when I walked to the stable and I discussed with the cows, the cattle, 1 and 2 hours. It was strange, and my mother supposed that it's very dangerous because if I continue this practice, will post me to the mental hospital, but I avoid this trap. Okay, basically I specialized, the second peculiarity of environmental history, looking at behavior of human as not only the bearer of culture, but animal, which direct the needs, for example, hunger, for example, ambition, for example, sexual motivation, like animals. Look at, for example, one story. I spent quite a long time in student hostel. For example, when I was a student of Szeged University, I lived in the Herman Otto student hostel. Somebody living in Herman Otto? no, in the other side of the Tisa river. And I remember one dawn between 4 and 5 o'clock. I woke up that I am hungry, and no meals whole of the room, not only me but my fellows. Therefore, I decided go to the frigo. You know, somebody living in a student hostel, some period of his and her life, student hostel, 1, 2, who living in student hostel know well, no high value of private property. If not closed, not sure they survive one night to other. Therefore, I decided go to the frigo and I will eat which I will find. Walked, opened the door. It's a typical student hostel frigo. Only 2 items I find inside of the frigo. 1 lamp and a small piece of butter. Lamp not edible, of course, but with very short hesitation, I ate the butter. Behave like an animal, a predator or omnivore, it depends on the approach. Therefore, direct us biological and physical needs. There is a double nature, no differences between other animals. When I closed my university studies, this was a very special period when the communism down and a new world was born. And on the time, at the turn of 80s and 90s, the prestige of Hungary is very high. Very easy receive fellowship. Therefore, the 90s I spent abroad. 90s I spent abroad, Bern University in Switzerland, École des Hautes Études in Paris, NIAS, Netherlands Institute of Advanced Studies in Amsterdam, and Munich, and Brno in Czech Republic. Therefore, opened the world for me. And I realized that on the 80s, one of the best and the most important innovation in the history, environmental history. I specialized to environmental history, and I stepped on the ladder, academic ladder, and finally I am professor of University of Szeged and Juhász Gyula Faculty of Education recently. And I teach 3 types of the history. Environmental history, this course focuses basically to environmental history, social and economic history. This is my academic background. Okay, some question about it? No? And I ask you a short introduction. The first one, name. The second one, faculty and the specialization. And the last question, why decided that select this course? Okay? Please.
My name is Laurent Vörös, and I currently study here at the Juhász Gyula Faculty of Education. And I decided to select this course because I was particularly interested in the historic aspects of environment and how it changes the world.
Okay, thanks.
I'm Ajtai Balázs, and I'm studying economy and management in the economical part of the university. And I'm here because I searched for some plus credit points, and it was the most the best option for me from the selections.
Okay.
That's why.
My name is Esther Bosch. I study marketing right now, and I chose this course because I was interested in environmental, and I like.
It's very fashionable about it recently.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
I'm Patrick Bonner. I'm studying international communications at the moment, and I was interested in this course because I also needed some plus credit points, and this was the one that caught my interest the most.
Okay.
My name is Katalin Angel. I study maths and physics. I'm going to be a teacher. I
Management at the Faculty of Economics. And sustainability and sustainable issues are very close to my heart, so that's why I wanted to learn a bit more about the history of them.
My name is Antonia Asztalos. I study biochemical engineering, and I chose this course because I guess it's the closest to what I study, and I'm also interested in history.
I'm Anna Bodnár. I'm a medical student and I'm interested in technology.
My name is Marcel Lakatos. I study economy and management, and yeah, I did plus credits as well. So yeah, that's why I choose this.
It's a pure interest. It's very important.
Well, it's English, and I like English, so.
Yeah. It's a chance for it. My career with English was very special because I never learned English at school, but received a fellowship to Switzerland. And my salary was much higher than recently in the frame of professorship. It's a Swiss salary, but on the time I know only French. This was my first foreign language, and I work a research team. And each information necessary translate to me to French. Therefore, slow down the work of research team. And the leader of team told to me, I have two options, my way or highway. And I started to learn very, very quickly to English. Therefore, I have a slight Swiss dialect with the English communication. But it's a good example for that the most important factor and the element of foreign language learning is motivation. It's a motivation. There is a motivation. Good. It's no motivation. It's not fair. Good. Anyway, the topic of this course, analyzing interaction between physical environment and society. It's a double interaction. Environment able to influence the social processes, and the social behavior able to form a physical environment, obviously. But this is a scientific approach, which is the most important peculiarity of scientific approach. Necessary define the background. Because if we are looking and finding the strategy of cognition, we can divide at least three strategies of cognition. The first one, a rational cognition. A rational cognition, the crucial element of rational cognition is a fact and standardized methodology. What mean? The fact, it's something deniable or verifiable. But it's no a final knowledge. The fact, no a final knowledge. Open one guidebook, even university guidebook, which published 20 or 50 years ago. Majority of facts, recently, no fact. Why so important? Because with the scientific cognition, no final cognition. The target is moving continuously. Very important to realize that if somebody uses a scientific methodology, no final cognition. But very easy passing the information, learning information. It's possible, but no final cognition. Look at the second one. The second one, a magical cognition. Look at, for example, Harry Potter. The most important topic, a magical cognition. But my relation to the magical cognition, I no license for the magic. But I am skepticism of me mean I can imagine everything. But I no license for that. This is the second one. And the third one, a theological cognition, which is the basic unit of theological cognition. Meeting personally with God. Look at, for example, story of Islam, a Muslim religion. Muhammad met personally with Gabriel, archangel, and they received a final cognition. Look at the story of St. Paul, who named before the crossroads of Damascus? Saul. Me met personally with Jesus and received the final cognition. Lost the consciousness and very bad condition. But I speak this story for you, and nobody losing cognition, losing the physical, losing something, cognition. Finally, we can use in this situation. And for us, this is only a story, no more, only the story. Therefore, the peculiarity of theological cognition, there is a final cognition, but not able passing to other. Because for other, only a story. Why is so important to tell for you this different strategy? Because in consequence of enlightenment, recently there is only one legal form of cognition, the rational cognition. If somebody communicates, it's a plenary communication situation, only rational arguments accept the large audience. Any others, the magicians and the theologians, closed a ghetto. For example, the churches, for example, civil communities and civil organization, but only rational cognition accepted in public environment. Why so important? Because very important to realize that rational cognition able open the way for the one slice of the real world. But I have license for that. Therefore, I don't want to speak about the magic and the theological question, but very important to realize the rational world only one slice of the world. Okay, turn back. I will speak about this rational approach to the environmental and social question, which is the first step. Very important, define the basic concept and the background, the conceptual background of evolution of environmental history. This is the building of Hermann Otto Student Hostel. I lived in the 506 number room, and I remember exactly the day when I decided I will specialize to environmental history. It happened 27 March 1985. It was a Wednesday, and I thought about necessary to find some research field. As I mentioned before, I'm interested for history and geography, and I would like to find some area overlap to discipline. And I spent my childhood in eastern county of Hungary. It's named recently Bihar County. In consequence of Peace Treaty of Trianon, it's sliced two parts. Majority became a part of Romania, and the smaller one is left in the frame of Hungary. And I decided travel to the Romanian area, realizing, because this is the mountain area inside of recent Hungary, very rare, the real mountain. It's mean much higher than 1,000 meters. And the Bihar mountain, very interesting. Not by chance, Bihar County in historical tradition named a country, not a county, country. Two country had in the historical past Somogy, you know, in Transdanubian area, and Bihar, eastern part of Hungarian plain. Why? Because economic reason, it was a compact area. It's one part plain area with animal husbandry, one part sediment area with classical agriculture, and the mountain area with animal husbandry and mining of silver and mining of gold. And on the focus of this country was Nagyvárad. This is the capital of the county, which was a market area where changed the gold, the silver, animal, and the products of plant farming. Therefore, it's very interesting area. I traveled to Romania. It was quite dangerous because this was an area which dominated a dictator, Ceausescu. It's possible you listen something about this ruling years. It was quite dangerous, but very important. And I suggest to you, if you would like to develop not only with intellectual picking and reckoning and gathering intellectual information and items, but experiences, very important to travel. Because, to my experiences anyway, the most efficient form of learning, this is the traveling. Meeting with foreign people, solving the critical situation, and so on and so on and so on. And I traveled to the mountain area alone. It was very, very strange to be by alone, but alone. Majority of my travel I perform alone. I don't know, it's psychological reason, I suppose. Travel to Berényes, it's eastern corner of Bihar mountain. Later I traveled northward. In the mountain I lived together, spent the night with a gypsy cottage. It's very strange. First occasion when I spent the night gypsy cottage, and later with Hungarians, with Romanians. It's very strange and very dangerous. Looking back, it was very dangerous travel. I arrived back to Szeged and realized three critical conclusions. The first conclusion was, if I analyze interaction with physical environment and society from the side of physical environment, the driving force is a climate, and the history of climate. Why? Because if you're looking at ecosystem with, for example, biosphere, with the soil and with water and hydrosphere and everything, the most important driving force is the weather, or longer term, climate. Change, for example, the vegetation, change the water level on the soil, change, for example, the chemical processes inside of the soil, the living space for the animal. Therefore, the key factor and the driving force is the climate. The second one, no reason analyze political unit, because the nature unfold and develop not artificial political frame, but a natural regional unit. Therefore, necessary to use the concept of Hungarian plain, for example, Tisza valleys, Danube valleys, or for example, Carpathians, different part of the Carpathians. Therefore, necessary to use a geographical region and geographical concept. And the last one, my discipline is environmental history. Environmental history on that time was quite a new branch of history. Why so important? Because if you're looking at history is a collective memory, a community. This community may be a village, maybe a city, maybe a county, maybe whole of the people, whole of the nation. And the history is a collective memory. Therefore, very important, taking good condition the memory. Look at, for example, some people who is a mental problem, a memory. I remember it's an Alzheimer symptom which lost the memories. New people know each morning. And it's dangerous because the person lost the orientation in the society, not able to perform even the simplest operation, walking to the supermarket, walking to the, for example, governmental offices, nothing. And the situation in the case of hurted memories in the case of villages, community, city, and the nation, the same. The consequence is the same. If some community destroyed the real memory, no good condition, able behave like a people who had a mental sickness. For example, during my early career, unfolded a civil war in Yugoslavia. Somebody came from the ex-Yugoslavian area. You have memories about this period?
Not because I was just 3 or 4 years.
Biographical reason.
Yeah.
But I traveled quite a lot. During my university studies, we were jealous to the Yugoslavian. Why? Because this was a little West. A lot of guest workers traveled to Germany, West Germany, and Italy, and everywhere. It's a rich people, rich people compared with Hungarian. And for example, a lot of my friends traveled to Novi Sad, to Uvide, for smuggling. For example, disc and jeans and any others. And we were jealous. It was a prosperous country, quite a prosperous country. And on the time of civil war, somehow behaved the people like a mental madness or mental sickness symptoms. For example, like recently in Ukraine and Russia, a lot of cross-marriage had. For example, the wife is Croatian and the husband Serbian and each other. And this was the most critical in this case because no so high differences between the Serbian and Croatian languages recently increased the distance. Like this is the same situation in the case of Slovakia and Czechia. Because on the union between the Czechoslovakia, the most important linguistic operation was decrease the differences and somehow assimilate and unify the languages. After the divorce, the linguistic strategy was increase the differences. A little bit same happened in the case of Croatia and Serbia on the time of civil war. And the people behave like a mental, show the sickness, show the symptoms of mental sickness. And which was the reaction of the children of this couple? Emigrated to western part of Europe. Why? Because no good option in this situation. If somebody redefine the identity, I am Serbian, hurt the other, the wife or the mother or father. It's no good option. And very interesting, I traveled quite a lot in Serbia and ex-Yugoslavia, and the most dangerous was, and left 4 million, how the name is, I forgot the term. It's the bomb taking under the soil, which is the somebody?
No.
No. Okay. Anyway, very dangerous walking. Was on the landscape. Mine. Thanks a lot. Mine. Okay. It was very strange because majority of landscape without any agrarian operation, like a rewilding area, and the people moved and used for communication and for traffic only the highway, and 1 meter left and 1 meter right. It was mine-free area, no any other. And very interesting was when traveled to Croatia. It was 1 district and 3 buildings burned down. We realized in this building lived the Serbian. Arrived to the Serbian area, large district, unhurted, only 5 buildings destroyed. In this area, in this building lived the Croatians. Therefore, it's a evil logic of the civil war. The victim and the aggressor is depend on the proportion. If some area dominated by Croatian, the Serbian became the victims and vice versa. Okay, turn back. Environmental history. Environmental history, turn back, if we are looking at history. History, we can agree, history is a collective memory of one community. It's maybe village, maybe city, maybe nation. And if we are looking at the history and the historiography, each area there is a big question. A lot of small questions, but one big question. In the 19th century, when founded the history, the big question was how form the nations? It's a great question. And wrote down the history of Hungarians, history of Germans, history of Romania, Serbia, and so on. This was the big question. It's a very tricky question. Why? Because the nation, it's a quite new innovation. Because if we are looking at the history, the common language and the common culture wasn't important in the formation of country. Look at, for example, a Mongolian empire. Mongolian empire was the largest empire, whole of human history, larger than the British Empire. Which was the Mongolian empire? No empire of Mongolians, empire of dynasty of Genghis Khan. Therefore, the basic logic wasn't the nation, wasn't a common culture, but an empire and imperial logic. It's now based a dynasty, based on common heritage. Look at, for example, Hungarian history. Until the middle of 19th century, which was the official language in Hungary?
German.
No? Try. Joseph II, Habsburg emperor, tried to introduce faith. Latin. It's very important. Until the Diet of 1843, 3 or 4, I am not sure, but some 40s, Latin was the official language. Not Hungarian, Latin was the official language. It's not so high grammatical level, but everybody learned and spoke in Latin. Look at, for example, if somebody interested for the literature, Hungarian literature of 19th century, Jókai or Vörösmarty or lot of other, 10% of text Latin or some Latin Hungarized version. But basically, why? Because majority of educated audience was able to understand the Latin language. Okay, the common culture and common language became, on the time of nationalism, the basic and the basis of formation of the nation. It's a quite new innovation, and very important to, for example, if you would like to understand which is the most important guiding factor of history or historical age, look at which is the reason the people kill each other. Look at, for example, the early modern time, from 16th, 17th century, religion wars, Reformation and Counter-Reformation. The people kill each other for religious reason. And look at the 19th and 20th century, became the guiding force, killing each other, the nationalism, even recently. Okay, the second big question of history on the time of formation of global economy, economic history. How form economy of state, economy of city, economy of village. Therefore, the second great question how formed the global economy. And the third great question in the 30s and the 40s in the 20th century, how form a mass society, and was born a social history. The next step was a psychological history. How formed the mentality of people. Look at, for example, one story. Why is so important, the mentality? In the Middle Ages, the most important driving force of behavior, the prestige and the braveness. This is the very use of nobility. Look at one story. Somebody know Friedrich II, Emperor of Holy Roman Empire. He was, according to modern terms, a clever and very rational people in the 12th century. But in the 12th century, to be rational, it was dishonest behavior. Look at the story. He was an emperor, and on the time, Jerusalem was under direction of Muslim Emirates. And Europeans, on the time of Crusade, would like to conquering and reconquering more times. One time it was successful, the siege of city, but later lost the city. And the Pope, I remember some number of Benedicts, ordered to Friedrich organize a crusade. But this was a clever people, and organizing military campaign is very dangerous, very high cost, and no ambition for that. Therefore, organized a small fleet, only 3 ships, and traveled to Jerusalem as a tourist, a visitor, because the tourism on the time it was quite popular, traveling to the Holy Land. And Friedrich traveled to Holy Land and visited in Via Dolorosa and the hill of where crucified Jesus Christ, and visited in different churches, and finally asked information who is the ruler of Jerusalem. An emir, a local Muslim emir, and send one soldier would like to visit in the court of emir, and finally invited and visited for 2 weeks, and it was a great fast, and discussed about a lot of actual problems, and on the 2nd week proposed to the emir that it's very expensive to organizing and ruling Jerusalem. It's really, really very expensive. And I have a small capital, and I would like to buy Jerusalem from you. Okay, because my daughter will organize a marriage, and necessary to gathering a small amount for that. Okay, and Friedrich II paid for Jerusalem. Recently, it's a logical solution. No blood, no fight, no problem. But on the time of 12th century, it was the bottom, dishonest. And on the time had 3 ords of night, the temple, a German Order of Knights, and which is the third one, Ioannits Order of Knight, which was official army of the Holy Kingdom, Holy Empire, not Holy Roman Empire, but the Holy Lands Empire, the Jerusalem Kingdom. And nobody visited to Jerusalem taking over the key of Jerusalem. Why? Because is no honest behavior. in the 12th century, the legal form of conquering of the city with siege and with blood. And finally, it was waited for 2 weeks, Jerusalem, Friedrich II, and finally sent one officer of him to the leader of German Order of Knights, because it was a national organization and because he was emperor of Germany, ordered the leader of German Order of Knights going to Jerusalem. Therefore no option, and took over a key and go back to Sicily, because on the time the court of Holy Roman Empire located to Sicily in Palermo. And on 2 weeks, the city knights lost to Jerusalem, because would like to wait to save by swords. It's not possible, because the proportion between Christian 200,000 and the Muslim 12 million. It's no chance for that. And on the time, this is a good example for the changing mentality. A rational behavior in 12th century dissonance. Recently, if somebody would like to base a problem solution for cruelty and the braveness and the aggressivity, it's recently not normal behavior. Okay, and the last big question of history, environmental question, which I mentioned at the beginning. Human are a double nature, animal and bearer of culture, partly environmental changing able influence historical processes. Good. This is the basic form of interaction society able influence. It's possible switch on the light, because, no? Okay, if somebody, there is, okay, we will know later somebody would like to switch on, but realize the location of the switch. Good. This is the basic form of interaction society able influence environmental processes and environment, vice versa. One of the most important milestone on the formation of environmental history, create the name. Roderick Nash, it's an American scholar, used first time environmental history. Not by chance, United States was the cradle of environmental history, because in Europe, changing and transformation of physical environment started 6,000 years ago, in the Bronze Age. In the case of history of United States, started 200 years ago. Therefore, the memory of generation saved the condition before the environmental transformation. If we can imagine the American history, when arrived the first generation of conquistadors, not in the Central Americas, but in the Northern Americas, we can imagine it's a forest from the East Coast to the West Coast. And the history of American nation, it's unfolded on the process of transformation of physical environment, and hewing down the forest and blowing up the physical environment. Therefore, not by chance, the first national parks founded in United States. Roderick Nash mentioned at the beginning of one of his works that Americans make 3 crucial innovations: Coke, basketball, and the national parks. It's a joke, it's good. Okay, how we can define environmental history? Joseph Michael Powell, Australian environmental historian, defined environmental history like Belgium, product of resident collective imagination. Probably you know that no Belgian. To be a Belgian, it's an identical decision, because in Belgium living French speaker Wallons and Flemish who speak a German dialect. Therefore, to be German, it's a decision. A little bit same situation in Switzerland. When I lived in Switzerland, it was very strange because in Switzerland there are 4 official languages: German, French, Italian, and Rhaeto-Roman, a small New Latin community in the Alpine area. And very interesting, somebody lived in Switzerland? It's a very interesting country because it's an early born national country, because formed before the nationalism. Therefore, very interesting to communicate with the Swiss people. Because everybody, for example, I lived in the German area. The people, after the birth, communicate in the family, as everybody. Each varies, there are a local dialect. It's named a Deutsch. It's not a German, not a Hochdeutsch, not a literature German. Local Deutsch. It's a Berner Deutsch. It's around the Bern. Zürcher Deutsch around Zurich. And it's different. No written version, only oral version. Very difficult to define the language in the identity, because the Swiss people visiting in elementary school or kindergarten start to communicate on Hochdeutsch, in the High German, as a foreign language. And officially necessary to learn French and Italian. But to the situation connected the language. On the family, speak the local dialect. On the school, speak the German, the Hochdeutsch, and international communication, any others. Therefore, very, very strange, the formation of the community, identity. And I asked, for example, my colleagues, which is the basic element of the identity, and it cited Alps, Alpine area. But Alpine area, there is France and Austria recently. Therefore, it's a free decision. Finding identity, free decision. Good deal, intellectual uncertainty, diversity, and even incoherence. Environmental history visibly, imperfectly delineated, highly permeable migratory area provide unexcelled opportunities for intellectual conversation and exploration. It's quite a long definition. Why so interesting? Because according to this definition, environmental history not a job of historian, but participate anthropologists, geographers, sociologists, economists, everybody who interested to the interaction. It's not a historical topic, but an interdisciplinary research field area. Okay, look at one other approach. Paul Sears, it's an American guy, basically ecologist, environmental history as subversive science. Everybody know which is the subversive, which it's subvert the situation. Subvert the situation. What means the subvert the situation? Look at, for example, not majority, everybody, Hungarian student. I suppose everybody know the story of Battle Muhi on the time of Mongolian invasion. If you remember your studies, secondary studies, the story of Battle Muhi, it was a fourth of Hungarian king, Béla IV. It was a clever person, but no talented in the organizing of military operation, very bad connection with the feudal lords, and so on, so and so. And finally lost for weaknesses, personal and military weaknesses, this crucial battle. But survived. It's very important. And very interesting, all of this information based only two documentary sources. In the Middle Ages, not so much documentary sources, only two. The first are Rogerius, two priests, and Thomas from Spalato. And very interesting, 50 years ago, found description of the battle, Muhi, in Chinese chronicles, which documented that Chinese chronicles after description of Mongolian officer who participated in the battle. And in the Chinese chronicles realized it was a very heavy battle. The loss of Mongolian army is very, very high. And the one position of the battle, the general, Subotai, the general, because the leader, official leader was a Batu, but the real officer and the leader or general of the army was a Subotai. Was a general of even the Genghis Khan. It's very old guy. The Subotai thought about the possibility of retire, losing battlefields, but finally changed the situation and closed the battle and won the battle. But very important to realize, one source, one documentary source, not real source. Each situation necessary to analyze from different point of view, different perspective. And if take into consideration environmental factors, looking basically different manner, invasion of Mongolians. Because invasion of Mongolians destroyed majority of the country, northern part, central part, eastern part. But if possible, you remember the story, a Danube frozen over. Therefore, delayed the invasion onto the direction of Transdanubian area. And Mongolians used a stratagem. You know which is the stratagem? It's a trick. It's a military trick. Left large herds of cattle on the left part of the Danube without herds and shepherds. It's a quite typical, because a nomadic army, it's organized logistical background and the feeding with large herds. And moving the army, more 100 cattle and the sheep lost. It was a normal. And the Hungarian officer looking other coast of the river, a lot of animals. And the safe ice cover walk to the other side, direct the animals to the right side of the Danube, and the Mongolian sentinel realized the position of the ice bridge and followed the Hungarians. Why interesting story in the point of view of environmental history? Because look at the situation. Two critical events happened. Mongolian invasion and very cold winter. If looking only the Mongolian invasion and no cold winter, the Transdanubian area should to be survived without losses. Why? Because the following spring, Mongolian army left the country. If no cold winter, no chance going through the river. Okay, one. Other one. Cold winter without Mongolian invasion, no critical. Somebody frozen on the ways, but no other losses. The interaction coinciding two events, two critical anomaly, military invasion and cold winter, became fatal for the population of Transdanubian area. Okay, subversive. Subversive because necessary to take into consideration environmental changes. Like, you know, the principle of Chekhov. It's a great author, Russian author. Taking one revolver onto the theater, somebody will use the revolver. If take into consideration a physical environment, necessary to integrate to the narrative. Good example for that story of Mongolian invasion. Subversive science subverted the accepted view of world history. Why? You remember which was the first question, first big question of the history? Evolution of national states. Who made a national state? Kings, rulers, generals, the great man, the big man. In the case of environmental history, necessary to take into consideration not only the great man, but even of physical environment. But this is the same situation. There is a psychologist in the audience, no? 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 Because very interesting, for example, solving the problem. According to history, recent history, each element of human behavior is a topic of historical research. For example, a spitting. You know, spitting. Which is the function of the spitting? Two basic functions. There is a hygienic function. There is, for example, flying something inside the mouth or make some infection and cleaning the mouth. And other one, a social function. It's a social communication. For example, if somebody disdained the other only a gesture. It's a social function and social how the name is a play for signing disdain of somebody. Okay, but look at the other function. Clean the mouth. It's different the using of spitting according to cultural background. In Europe or Anglo-Saxon world, spitting necessary to hide. If somebody finds something, take a handkerchief and clean it. In China, not. There is a spitting bowl on the table and the people, it's gathering and clean. Only the material of spitting bowl is different. I remember during my university studies, the field trip, because I am partly geographer as I mentioned, a field trip organized to Odessa. Somebody visited in Odessa. Recently, one field of war. Unbelievable place. Unbelievable place. Constructed in the 18th century. And harbor and the walking area of the harbor paved with the stone of volcano Vesuv. Vesuv. Why? Because when the last decades of the 19th century, it was a granary of Europe even in the 19th century, and the great ships transported wheat and rye and cereals to Europe. And right back, the great ships, granary ships, empty. And one clever trader of Odessa invented great idea, walking on the street of Odessa and paved the walk side with the rocks of Vesuv. And imported, it is very Russian, imported rocks of Vesuv and walking on, and other experience was the tunnel system is very corrupted and very bad. And we receive rooms in student hostel of University of Odessa. Switch on, switch out the first night, the lamp and the light, and appeared cockroaches. You know which is the cockroach. It's so small insect. It's very quick. And when the first sentinel appeared on my leg, I wasn't able to sleep. First night, second night, third night. And perform the geographical field trip, not so easy if somebody like a sleeping zombie walking on the street and the mountain. And finally, we complained to the director of student hostel, it's not possible to sleep for the cockroaches. The director knew about the cockroaches and no idea, because corrupted whole of the Cunard system and no chance for us. We killed more 1,000 cockroaches, but behind there are the second Ukrainian front and more 10,000 cockroaches. And finally, we asked suggestion for the local Russian student. And they surprised. Why problem? Cockroaches? Cockroaches never hurt the people. It's very small and kind. And finally realized we are not able to living together with cockroaches. Therefore, found the solution because had to change our relation to the cockroaches. And which is the most important and most efficient device for changing the relation? Vodka. Vodka. We drank each evening 1/2 and 1 liter vodka quickly, and the vodka able to switch out the bulb very quickly for 1/2 hour, lost the consciousness, the cockroaches walked on our bodies, but no matter. And we woke up 5 o'clock with dry mouth and very dirty, cockroaches disappeared. It was a good solution. And I suggest to you, if you travel, for example, in the third world, it's final solution for the situation. Okay, but turn back to the side. Environmental history recognizes the biological fact humans are dependent on natural factor. Growth is limited. It's a classical ecological principle. No resource is infinite, and value of biological diversity. Why is so important? Look at the chain of consumption. In the human evolution, each of animal above the position of the human, recently it's disappeared or very near to the disappearance. Lions, great predators, wolves, and The human cut down the chain of consumption above of them. Good. How formed environmental history? How take the position, a new discipline? The first step, intellectual project. Invent, it's very important to specialize to analyzing interaction between physical environment and society. First step. Named by Roderick Nash, it's environmental history. The second one, founding department, institute and journals, this is the second one. And the third one, graduate student appear on the labor market with the hope of receive a job. In United States, which is the first and until now the most developed country of environmental history, unfolded each phases. In Europe, which is the second in this evolution, it's quite rare, because majority of historical branches, even social history, economic history, political history, appear in Europe, except environmental history. In Europe, appear in the second phase only, therefore organized a European Society for Environmental History, a lot of universities, there are institute, journal or department in the environmental history, but no organized education for environmental historian. Okay, if we are looking evolution of European culture, European civilization, even environmental history, which was born from European civilization, there are two roots, Judeo-Christian heritage and the Greek heritage. It's very important to mention, it's no parallel. There are a lot of conflict between Judeo-Christian heritage and Judeo-Christian point of view and the Greek heritage. A lot of tension, a lot of interaction. It's a counter interaction. Look at, for example, the best and the simplest example for conflict between the two heritage, opinion and judging of homosexual practice. In the case of of Judeo-Christian heritage, a little sin. A little sin. In the Greek heritage, as usual, even the Greek heritage, no direction of the sexuality. Eros, it's mean everything, no direction. Look at, for example, warrior of Sparta. It's a police, it's a Greek police, you know. In the warrior of Sparta, no problem with the identity. But look at the career of the soldier. It's a great question, even recently. It's possible socialized in the family or not. For example, I have 3 daughters and 1 son, and some weeks ago, my son, it's 15 years old, ordered from my wife, how the name is, it's Saneg. Saneg? Tükörtojás. To my last memory, its name Sun Egg. But we will see. But ordered that would like to only the yellow part. White is not. I realized in family it's not possible to be socialized. And this was the conclusion of the Spartans. The boys around 7 or 8 years old closed to the cousin and took under military education. And when reached 14 and 15 years old, received a mentor, an older soldier, older warrior. And the boy became a boyfriend of mentor. Later, when the first military operation organized, as a young warriors participated in sexual violence. Occupied area is a name, a fruit of war. The contemporaries, sexual violence, second step of sexual socialization. And the third one, married, officially. And the fourth one became a mentor of younger warrior. Turn around. Compared with Judeo-Christian heritage, it's a little sin. It's very important. If we are looking at the European civilization, it's not a harmless evolution. A lot of conflict there are inside of the civilization. If we are looking environmental history, 2 origins, a Judeo-Christian heritage and the Greek heritage. This is the last slide today. The first step in the formation of knowledge about the physical environment in the Bible, the Garden Eden. The story of Garden Eden and expulsion from the Garden Eden. Very important to mention that why selected the garden? Because somebody visited in the Near East yet? Not yet. Desert area. If somebody living in the desert area, the best one is oasis. An oasis. Like a garden. Moreover, it's a safe place in the garden, living together, lot of different animals, different plants, different fruits. Under direction, there is a fence around the garden, saving a cherubs. Somebody know which are the cherubs? Angels, because there are a lot of different angels. If somebody watched the Game of Thrones series, okay, you remember, stolen from the Bible, cherubs are swords with flame. Look. Not necessary to pay for that, this is a biblical story. Okay, it's under direction of God and saved by the cherubs. And when walked around first couple, Adam and Eve, but very interesting. You know, two parts of the biblical stories are accepted and canonized, and which is the name? It's not canonized. Special terms, not canonized, but later the special term. And very interesting. If you will read the Bible on the book of creation, there are two sentences about the creation. One sentence is, the God made the first couple. One sentence. A little bit later, Adam lived alone in the Garden Eden and very bored. Therefore, the God took a dream to Adam and take out one bones and made a couple of Eve. But very interesting, the first, according to first sentences, some five or six sentences before, the author of the Bible wrote that made together the first couple. There are apocryph, I remember, apocryph, you know which is the apocryph, not canonized, apocryph Bible text. The first creation created no Eve, but other women are Lilith, who are the same nature like Adam, made from natural material and with the same the same quality of the knowledges. What means the same quality of the knowledges? In the stories of Bible, only 4 persons knew the real name of God. Adam, Lilith, Moses, and Jesus. Why so important? Because the real name of God contains 3 Hebrew letters. If somebody there is some computer which able to combine the Hebrew letter, may start the experiment for that, because you find the final solution, the good combination of Hebrew letter and able to say the real name of God, receive the power of God. Okay, this is the homework for next week. Okay, thanks a lot for your attention. We will continue with this slide, and I ask the list of participated students. Ajtai Balázs. Okay. Okay, very important to mention, participation at the lecture not mandatory. But if somebody more or less participate, I will take into consideration making a grade at the end of this course. Okay.